Hey guys, Julian here, and today I'm going to be talking to you about how to make tech casts like Cloonee, Michael Bibi, and Fisher. What I'm going to be doing is I've already made a few videos on each of these different artists. What I'm going to be doing instead is giving you some really in-depth tips that I've never shown on this channel before that I've learned from these guys' music and that you can take to make your own tech house tracks a lot better. So yeah, to go along with this video, I actually just dropped a new sample pack on my Bandcamp called Tech House Construction Loop Kits Volume 2. What this is it's 5 construction kits, meaning essentially you can see you get these little track ideas here, sort of like this one. This is kit 1 from the pack, where you can see you get all the individual parts as audio, as well as you get the project files so that you can go in and take apart like the MIDI and the presets and everything and really see what's going on here. And you get that for all 5 kits. I'll play you each of the kits. So here's the first one. Second one. Third one. And then the last one. So you can hear there's a lot of cool stuff here, and with each of these, again, you're going to get the whole loop, all of the individual loops as well. You know, the bass, the kick, the clap even, all the different percussion, everything you need is in there so that you can take this stuff and apply the knowledge I'm going to give you in this video and that I've given you in these other Tech House videos and make your own tracks out of it. So yeah, the link to that is right at the top of the description, and this is a really great way to support me. If you guys have enjoyed all these free videos I put up, then this is a great way to keep me going so I can keep making more videos, keep putting food on the table. And yeah, so like I said, link to that is in the description right at the top. Definitely can't miss it. And let's dive in with the tips. So the first tip here, and this may seem a bit general, but I'll elaborate, is keep it simple. And so what I mean by this is if you look at this project file, you can see we really only have 9 tracks here, and really it's kind of like 7 because each of these groups count as their own. So yeah, you really don't want to do too much in your track. You don't want to have, say a bass line and then a synth and then another synth on top of that and then 5 layers of percussion. Once you start doing all that kind of stuff, you're already kind of losing. And the reason is this: a lot of times when you're listening to a track on its own, that you're working on, it can seem like, oh yeah, there's something missing here. I need to add this piano or this synth or this little effect sound or this extra percussion. But then what happens is a lot of times when you go to take it to the club is kind of a different environment than when you're listening to the track on your own, because if you think about it, it's okay, you have ambient noise from the club, you have the noise of people talking, you have another track being played at the same time. You have all this different stuff happening, all these different factors happening, that if your track is too complicated, it's just going to mess it up, and it's not going to sound right within all of that. So that's something I try to keep in mind while I'm making my tracks, is hey, there's going to be literally people just yelling over top of this when they're hearing it in the club. So you don't want it to be too complex, otherwise it's not really going to fight through the noise. If you have a really simple track, on the other hand, it can work really well in that environment. If you just have nice drums, a nice fat bass line, maybe a simple either vocal or synth melody or something like that, that can really cut through the noise there, and it can work to your advantage because then people have a more simple track to kind of just groove to, versus again having to try to take in all these different elements. And it doesn't just come down to how many elements you have in your track either. There's certain other things, for example, if you look at this pluck and bass here, see how they're literally playing the same 3 notes there? That pluck is just following what the bass line does. And then here, it's the same deal, it's just only 2 notes. They're the same notes there. You can see it's this C sharp and D, and then C sharp and D. So, yeah, even just by doing stuff like that, that's something I've learned a lot from Michael Bibi and Fisher's tracks, is just having, if you're gonna have a synth like this, literally just have it follow your bass line. I try to think of it the bass line is the melody, and then all this other synths and stuff are kind of backing that up. So yeah, keeping it simple is definitely really important. Like you can see, even in the percussion, we don't have too much stuff going on. The next tip that I've learned is that the kick and bass is really the key to the whole track working. And what I mean by this is, like I pretty much said a second ago, the bass is kind of like the melody in this style of music if you think about it. So like, I always start a track with the kick and bass. Like, I wouldn't even start with something else. Maybe sometimes if you find like a cool vocal sample or a cool synth riff or something like that, and then you want to turn that into a track. But even if you do have that, what I would do is I would just completely mute it, and then like maybe start with that idea, mute the idea, get your kick and bass, and then bring the idea back in. Like, you really don't want to start with anything other than the kick and bass, because that's really the foundation for the track. Like, if you listen to this, the two loudest things are the kick and the bass. So you need to start with a really, really good kick sample and a really nice bass line. And really the key to bass lines is just having them be really simple. Like, I always just pick 2 or 3 notes, no more. Like, maybe you could do 4 notes, maybe you could do 5 notes. I guess it kind of depends, Maybe if you have like a call and response type of pattern, you could kind of do more with more notes, or like maybe you just have it jump up to some different notes for one bar here. But for the most part, I really just try to stick to like 2 or 3 notes total, and then just write something really simple like this where it's just bouncing between them. And that's all you need. And then again for the kick, just getting like a really fat, nice, hard-hitting kick like this. A lot of times I hear people send me tracks where it's like, they really just have like like that's the kick. It'll just be like, and it's super quiet. It just doesn't work at all in the track. It has no punch to it. It's just like, you really need to get a good kick, because that's going to like set up a lot of this, Like, let's just grab a random kick that doesn't really fit with tech house. Like, maybe we'll grab one from like this real track, for example, so this is actually a good kick on its own, but it's not really like the best tech house kick. Maybe let's try another one. Let's try this Umwelt one. So see how this kick, that's a pretty nice fat kick, but if we drop it into this mix, see how all of a sudden like the whole mix is affected just by having a different kick sample? And then when we switch it back to the good one, it's like just so much better. So yeah, that is like really gonna be important. It's just making sure like your kick and bass are solid, because that's really the key to all of this. Like, again, the kick and bass are just so much of the track that like you really need to hammer those down. And if you really spend your time studying how to make a good kick and bass, I think you'll get a lot better at this style a lot faster, and your tracks are gonna start sounding better. So yeah, then the next thing from there, which kind of goes hand in hand with that, is just getting powerful sounds. If you listen, like the percussion in particular, none of these are particularly like weak sounds. Like, these are all like, this was like the fattest hi-hat that I could find for this track. This is the fattest clap I could find. Even like the little percussion sounds. Again, it's like the difference between the little kick and then like the powerful, processed, hard-hitting sounding kicks like you hear in these tracks is like, if you use kind of smaller sounds or sounds that just aren't quite there, it's really just not going to sound right. Like, you could have the best programming in the world, you could have a great track, but if the sounds are bad that you're starting with, it's just not going to work. So you really need to spend time and like figure out what's going on with different hi-hats and like what makes like this clap works so well. Like, listen to a Michael Bibi track, for example. Listen to his hi-hats. Analyze, like, what's happening. Like, is this a short hi-hat? Is this a long hi-hat? Does it have a lot of high-end? Does it have a lot of mid-range? Does it have a lot of punch to it? Or is it a little bit softer? Like, really learn to kind of key into these details when you're listening to these tracks, because I think that's really, like, the other big thing here is that you need to, like, just get the right sound. Same deal with the kick. Like, listen to this kick sample. Even without the saturation. It's just a strong, powerful, punchy kick. And so all we need to do is just put a little bit of saturation on it. and the mix sounds great, versus, you know, maybe like you could find a kick that's a little bit softer and then try to process it, but it's always going to sound better if you just have a really good sound and you only put like a little bit of processing on that, versus having a bad sound and then trying to fix it with processing. Like, yeah, you always just want to start with something good like this. And the grouping is going to help with this a little bit too, like how we have the percussion bus here and then this low end bus up top. Like, you know, that does help to kind of make your sounds hit a bit more. Here's without any group processing, and then with it. But yeah, just getting like the right powerful sounds is really going to make a huge difference. And it's not all just about having like, you know, a nice bass line and a nice groove. It's also just about having really, really high quality sounds in there. And then the last tip that I want to give you guys for making tech house in this video is that the complexity really lies in the subtle details. And what do I mean by this? So like I said in the beginning, tech house is a very simple genre. Like, you really don't want to go too crazy with elements or with having too many different things happening at once. So what you're going to do instead is just kind of find little things that can add complexity to it while still having like it be very subtle. So a good example of this would be like, you know, a very simple way of doing this beat would be to just have this main hi-hat and the clap. Like, that does work in theory. It's just a bit boring because we don't have any percussion in there. That being said, we're not going to just drop in like a full percussion loop and have it start taking over the whole track. What we're going to do is find maybe like one or two small places where we can fit in some little percussion samples, like this hi-hat. Or this little snare. And then, like, you know, just having those little subtleties, that's where the complexity lies, because now when you hear this, even if you're not, like, most people when they hear this track aren't even really paying attention to like the hi-hat and this little snare, or even probably like the bass line or like even the main elements. They're just kind of hearing this nice groove. So what you're doing here is you're kind of creating this subconscious like groove where, again, it's not so obvious. Like if we just had like a tick 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 underneath this the whole time through or something, it's a little bit more kind of in the background. But by hearing those in the beat, like just the fact that your brain acknowledges, hey, there's something a little bit extra going on here, that's enough to like really make a big difference in terms of how the track sounds, while still keeping it really simple. Because again, the complexity is in the subtle details. Like if you have a really busy track and like, you know, let's say we had 5 synths happening right now. Well, you may be paying attention to like one detail of each of those 5 synths, and you might, you know, be able to kind of connect with that. But if you have a really simple track where it's like, okay, there's one hi-hat, there's one synth lead, there's one bass, there's one kick, then what's happening is you're kind of paying attention really to like the very, very fine details. Even if like you don't realize this, again, a lot of this is very subconscious, and I'm digging very deep back in my head to try to figure this out, or to try to like articulate it. But like you start paying attention to little details from each thing. Like for example, this plug. Because this track is so simple and there's so much open space, we can hear even like the reverb and delay tail of the synth. And that gives it character. Like that's the thing that's gonna make it kind of stand out in terms of details. Or like the kick, you know, if you have a really busy track, you can't hear what your kick is doing. But because this track is so open and simple, we can hear like all the little details, like how that kick has that little bit of saturation to it. And it's like that across the board with everything. So yeah, if you keep it simple, again, like you'll have complexity in the subtle details. It's just you don't want it to be too complex to where you're not going to be able to pick up on all those little details. So yeah, that's pretty much going to be it for this one, guys. Like I said, I just wanted to give you some really good tips that I picked up on about how to make tech house and how you guys can take your tracks to the next level. So yeah, that's going to be it for this one. I hope you guys enjoyed. As always, make sure to like this video as well as subscribe. And let me know what you think of this video in the comments. Like I said in the beginning, you can get my new sample pack, Tech House Construction Loop Kits Volume 2, available right at the top of the description on my Bandcamp. Once again, this is a really great way to support me, guys. I'll play you the kits one more time. yeah, a bunch of really cool stuff in there. You can get this right at the top of the description. And again, you get all the individual audio loops as well as the project file for each of them, so you can really tear them apart and learn from them. Again, this is a great way to support me. And yeah, thank you so much, guys, and I will see you tomorrow with another video.